Whoa, whoa. The security guard said, palm flat in front of her, as if she were some kind of intruder. His uniform was crisp, his badge gleaming under the light, but his eyes carried the arrogance of someone who thought the world was divided neatly into those who belonged, and those who didn't. Guests only, ma'am. Elena blinked, startled by the tone more than the words. I'm meeting someone inside. The guard gave a laugh, short, mocking. Sure you are, and I'm the King of England. He looked her up and down, slow, deliberate, making sure the humiliation sank deep. Let me guess, you're lost, or worse, trying to sneak in for free food. The words hit harder than she expected. For a moment she gripped her purse tighter, steadying her breath. She had faced boardrooms filled with sharks. She had survived betrayals that would have crushed stronger people. But somehow, being dismissed like this, by a man who didn't know a fraction of her worth, it stung in a way that reopened old wounds. Her silence only fueled him. Look, lady, this ain't a shelter. Go try across town. This is a five-star hotel. People pay real money to be here. Behind him, two women in sequined gowns walked past, their perfume drifting like a soft insult. They gave Elena a glance, not kind, not cruel, just indifferent, as if she were invisible. The guard stepped closer, lowering his voice, but not his contempt. Don't make me repeat myself. Move along. Elena's lips trembled, but not from fear, from restraint. She could have ended this with a single sentence, 5 words that would have flipped the smirk off his face. I own this entire chain. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she stepped back, letting the guard's pride puff up even higher, letting the crowd of glittering strangers believe the lie they saw, that she was poor, unworthy, and out of place, because sometimes the sweetest victories aren't in proving people wrong immediately. They're in letting them dig their own grave of arrogance first. And this guard, oh, he was digging fast. Elena turned away from the revolving doors, her heels scraping against the polished stone of the entrance steps. The drizzle outside had grown into a steady rain now, speckling her shoulders, plastering stray strands of hair to her face. Behind her, the Grand Line Hotel loomed like a fortress of glass and steel, its name glowing proudly across the skyline, a place she had once envisioned as a sanctuary for weary travelers, a place she had dreamed would carry her father's legacy. And here she was, treated like an unwanted intruder at the door of what was rightfully hers. Unbelievable, she whispered to herself, swallowing the lump in her throat. The security guard hadn't moved. He watched her from inside the glass doors, chest puffed out, lips curled in smug satisfaction. He looked like a sentry guarding treasure, utterly convinced that keeping her out was proof he was doing his job well. A group of businessmen approached, laughing loudly, their watches flashing under the street lamps. The guard's entire demeanor changed, back straight, voice booming with practiced courtesy. Welcome, gentlemen, right this way. He pushed open the door with unnecessary flourish, bowing slightly as if they were royalty. Elena felt her stomach twist. So this is how the world still works, respect tailored to the cut of a suit, not the content of a soul. She stepped aside as the group brushed past her, their laughter cutting through her like knives. One of them glanced at her, eyebrows knitting in confusion, but quickly looked away, pretending she wasn't there. Being ignored hurt more than being mocked. The rain picked up, drumming harder against the pavement. Her dress clung uncomfortably to her skin, and the purse she held so tightly grew damp at the edges. For a moment, Elena thought of walking away, of disappearing into the night, leaving behind this moment of shame. But another thought rose in her chest, stronger than the humiliation. This was mine, and no one was going to erase me from it. Still, she didn't walk back to the guard. Not yet. Instead, she crossed the street to a narrow cafe tucked between office buildings. Its yellow sign flickered weakly, but the warmth inside welcomed her more than the marble lobby ever had. She slid into a corner booth, ordered the cheapest cup of coffee, and let the steam fog her glasses as she gathered herself. At the next table, 2 hotel employees sat hunched over their phones, uniforms still crisp from their shifts. Elena overheard them chatting, laughing softly. "Did you hear?" one whispered. "Apparently the company's new regional owner is doing a surprise inspection sometime this month. No one knows when. The staff's on edge." Elena's lips curved into the faintest smile. So the whispers hadn't reached them yet. The irony settled over her like a cloak. She had come quietly tonight, just to observe, to see her empire from the ground level. And in less than 10 minutes, she'd been stripped of dignity at her own doorstep. The humiliation was sharp, yes, but it was also fuel. Because tomorrow, or the day after, the same guard who smirked at her in the rain would discover exactly who he had shoved aside. And that revelation would break him in ways no lecture ever could. The rain had slowed by the time Elena left the cafe. The streets still glistened silver puddles reflecting the city lights. She lingered near the corner, umbrella borrowed from the barista, resting lightly in her hand. From where she stood, she could see the Grand Line Hotel's glass facade again. Warm, inviting, and utterly indifferent to the people it excluded. Her coffee had gone cold, but her mind was burning. I built this place for everyone. For travelers, for families, for dreamers who wanted one night of luxury without feeling judged. How did it become a shrine to arrogance? Her gaze shifted back to the guard, still at his post, still radiating the same smug authority. She watched as an elderly couple approached, clearly tourists, worn luggage, frayed coats. They hesitated at the door, clutching their reservation printout like a lifeline. "Reservation under Thomas," the old man said politely, his voice wavering. The guard snatched the paper, scanned it quickly, then eyed them with the same disdain he had shown Elena. "Check-ins through the front desk," he barked, jerking his thumb toward the lobby. His tone carried none of the courtesy he had lavished on the suited businessmen earlier. Elena's jaw tightened. The couple shuffled past him, cheeks flushed, their excitement already dampened. Moments later, a luxury car pulled up, headlights cutting across the wet pavement. Out stepped a young woman in a glittering gown, heels clicking confidently. Without hesitation, the guard rushed forward, umbrella in hand, shielding her from the faint drizzle, as though she were royalty descending upon her kingdom. His voice dropped to syrupy politeness. "Good evening, miss. Right this way." The contrast was nauseating. Elena's pulse quickened. She had been gone from the front line of her empire for too long. The people she trusted to protect her brand had allowed parasites like this guard to infest it, turning what should have been hospitality into humiliation. She walked closer, this time blending into a small crowd, stepping out of a taxi. The guard barely glanced at her until the others had entered. Then, spotting her face again, his eyes narrowed with irritation. "You again?" he snapped, stepping forward like a wolf, guarding territory. "Didn't I tell you to leave? What is this? Some kind of game to you?" Elena held her ground, her fingers tightening around the umbrella. "I told you, I'm meeting someone inside." "Lady," his voice rose, drawing a few curious stares from guests nearby. "You don't belong here. This is a luxury hotel. People like you," he paused, letting his eyes rake over her damp dress and worn purse. "Don't walk in off the street. Now quit wasting my time." A flush spread across her cheeks, not of shame, but of fury. Fury barely held in check, the small crowd murmured. Some looked away uncomfortably. Others whispered, as though they were witnessing a public shaming. Elena swallowed hard. For a second, she considered speaking the truth, letting the guard choke on his arrogance right then and there. But no, the moment wasn't ripe. Not yet. Instead, she turned away, shoulders squared, letting him believe he had triumphed, letting the crowd assume she had been defeated. Because soon, very soon, the stage would flip, and when it did, the lesson carved into this man's arrogance would be unforgettable. By the next morning, the skies had cleared. The city was washed, glimmering in sunlight. The Grand Line Hotel stood brighter than ever, its mirrored glass catching the dawn like a jewel. Guests bustled in and out. Bellboys rushed with luggage carts. The world inside moved on, unaware that last night's unwelcome visitor had returned with a very different presence. Elena arrived, not in her plain cotton dress, but in a simple yet commanding navy suit. Her damp hair now smooth, tied back, her steps measured, steady. She looked no less humble. But there was authority in her eyes now, an authority honed by years of leadership. Beside her walked Mr. Harlow, the long-serving regional director of operations. His voice was low, but brimming with urgency. "Miss Carter, I must apologize. I had no idea you planned to inspect last night. If I had—" Elena raised a hand, silencing him gently. "I didn't want anyone to know, that was the point." Her gaze lingered on the revolving doors. "And it told me everything I needed to see." As they approached the entrance, the same security guard stood there, arms folded across his chest. His eyes flickered with recognition, narrowing instantly. "You again?" he muttered, voice thick with irritation. "Didn't I warn you?" But then, his eyes darted to Harlow. That crisp suit, that ID badge. Weight he couldn't ignore. The guard stiffened. Unsure. "Sir, is she with you?" Mr. Harlow's lips tightened. "She is more than with me. Stand aside." The guard blinked. Confusion etched across his face. He stepped back reluctantly, watching Elena pass into the lobby. She had once been denied. Her heels tapped softly against the marble floors. The sound echoed with quiet command. Inside, the lobby was just as she remembered. Lavish, polished, yet cold. Chandeliers glittered. Receptionists smiled mechanically. Guests lounged in velvet chairs. But Elena hadn't come to admire the beauty. She came to see the cracks. The receptionist nearly jumped when Harlow leaned over the desk. "Gather the staff. Now. All of them. The owner is here." The words traveled like a ripple through water. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Staff whispered frantically. Disbelief painted across their faces. The poor woman, humiliated at the door last night, was suddenly the center of every eye, in the lobby. Elena said nothing. She only stood in the center of the room. Her presence calm, but unyielding. The guard, now hovering uncertainly near the entrance, shifted his weight. Realization dawning. Confidence draining. One by one, staff members assembled. Housekeepers, servers, bellboys, receptionists. They lined up nervously, some smoothing their uniforms, others casting quick glances at Elena, trying to piece together who she really was. Finally, Mr. Harlow cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to reintroduce you to the true owner of this entire hotel chain, Miss Elena Carter." A stunned silence fell over the lobby. Elena's eyes locked on the guard, his face drained of color, his arrogance shriveling under the weight of the truth. The reversal had begun. "Elena," the silence in the lobby was so thick it could have been cut with a knife. The chandeliers above sparkled, but no one dared move. No one dared speak. Every staff member stared at Elena. Some wide-eyed with disbelief. Others ashamed that they hadn't recognized her worth when she first walked through the doors. And then there was the guard. His earlier swagger had evaporated. He stood rigid, jaw slack, eyes darting between Harlow and Elena, as if desperately searching for some escape from the reality crashing down on him. The very woman he had mocked, dismissed, humiliated, was the very one who signed his paycheck. Elena let the silence linger. Power, she knew, wasn't in shouting. It was in patience. It was in letting the truth weigh heavy on the guilty until they collapsed under its pressure. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was calm, but each word struck like a hammer. "Last night, I stood outside these very doors. I was treated as if I were invisible, as if my worth could be measured by my clothes, or my purse, or the rain in my hair. I was told I didn't belong." The staff shifted uneasily. Several lowered their eyes. She turned, her gaze settling firmly on the guard. "You didn't see me as a person. You saw me as a problem." The man opened his mouth, stammering. Ma'am, I didn't know." Elena raised her hand, silencing him instantly. "That's the point. You didn't care to know. You decided who I was in 5 seconds, and you decided I wasn't worth respect." The words hung in the air. Every employee felt them. She drew a deep breath, then looked back to the rest of the staff. Hospitality is not about marble floors and crystal chandeliers. It's not about wealth or appearances. Hospitality is about dignity. If we strip a guest of their dignity at the door, then everything inside is worthless. The room was utterly still. Even the guests had fallen silent, some nodding, others watching intently, as though they were witnessing more than a reprimand. They were witnessing a lesson. Finally, she returned her gaze to the guard. His face pale, sweat dotting his forehead. "You are relieved of your duties," she said. Voice steady, effective immediately. The man swallowed hard, his pride collapsing like a tower of cards. Security staff stepped forward quietly, guiding him out. He didn't resist. He couldn't. His arrogance had no air left to breathe. Elena's eyes softened as she turned back to the staff. "Let this be the last time. Anyone, guest or stranger, is judged by the weight of their wallet. From this day forward, this hotel will remember why it was built. Not just for profit, but for people. A quiet murmur of agreement rippled through the staff. Heeds nodded, eyes shone with something between shame and determination. Elena allowed herself a small smile. The humiliation of last night still lingered, but it had been transformed, into purpose, into change. She stepped back toward the grand doors, her reflection gleaming in the marble floor beneath her. And as she left the lobby, her words echoed like a final bell. Never mistake humility for weakness. Sometimes the one you push aside is the one holding the keys to everything you desire. The chandeliers sparkled overhead. The empire was hers again, and this time it would carry her lesson in every shining light. Remember, ordinary people often carry extraordinary power. If you believe that too, give this video a like, share it with someone who needs this reminder, and subscribe for more inspiring stories.